The restaurant breathed money in subtle ways. Not the loud kind with crystal chandeliers and gold-plated nonsense, but the quieter signals meant only for those who belonged. Chairs that hugged your spine just enough, a temperature calibrated to keep expensive suits comfortable, waiters who glided rather than walked. Soft amber lights slid across white tablecloths like honey, and a pianist near the window played as if he were apologizing for every note. Maya had learned this room the way sailors learn tides. She knew which tables demanded silence, which wanted conversation, which diners needed reassurance, and which wanted to feel invisible. By 7 in the evening, she'd already handled a spilled wine glass, a couple arguing in whispers sharp as knives, and a regular who tipped badly but liked to be remembered. Her feet ached, but her posture never betrayed it. She wore calm the way others wore perfume. When Victor Hale entered, the room shifted. It wasn't dramatic. No one gasped. But heads turned in increments, conversations dipped half a note. He moved with the assurance of someone accustomed to being recognized even when he wasn't introduced. His suit was charcoal, cut perfectly, the kind of thing you forgot immediately but somehow remembered forever. He didn't scan the room for approval, he assumed it. The maitre d' approached with a smile that held just a touch of reverence. Mr. Hale, your table is ready. Victor nodded once and followed, already loosening his cufflinks as if the evening were a mild inconvenience he'd graciously agreed to endure. He sat alone at a corner table with a view of the city lights, checked his phone, and frowned. Maya saw the flick of his fingers before she heard it. A sharp snap, quick and practiced. She arrived beside him before the sound fully settled. Good evening, sir. He glanced up, eyes skimming her face and stopping somewhere just short of acknowledgement. Water. Sparkling. No ice. She nodded. Of course. May I? And bring the menu. Though I already know what I want. She returned with the water and placed it gently, aligning the glass with the knife the way she always did. Are you ready to order, or would you like a moment? He didn't look at the menu. The tasting menu. Chef's choice. But tell him I don't eat nonsense. She smiled faintly. Any allergies or preferences I should note? He let out a short laugh. If I had allergies, I wouldn't be eating here. Maya wrote nothing down, but she remembered. Would you like the wine pairing? He tilted his head, appraising her. Surprise me. Try not to mess it up. The words were casual, tossed like crumbs, but she felt their weight land. She inclined her head and stepped away. From the kitchen pass, she could feel his attention on her as the first course went out. A cool appetizer arrived, delicate, precise. He tasted it, frowned, then waved her over with a curl of his finger. This is from Provence, yes? He asked. It's inspired by southern France, Maya replied evenly. He smirked. Then you should know it's pronounced bouillabaisse, not bouillabaisse. She met his eyes. Actually, sir, the traditional pronunciation is closer to bouillabaisse. A flicker crossed his face, surprise, then irritation. Right, he said, dismissing it. Whatever you say. As the courses continued, Victor seemed to grow more animated, as if the wine were loosening not just his tongue but his restraint. He asked where the fish had been sourced, then interrupted her answer. He commented on the plating, on the portion size, on the tempo of service. Each remark carried a faint edge, like he was testing how much pressure she could bear before cracking. Nearby diners noticed. A couple at the next table exchanged glances. The pianist's hands grew tentative. By the third course, Victor leaned back in his chair and looked around as if surveying a stage. You know, he said, voice pitched just loud enough, it must be relaxing. Not having to think all day. Maya paused, a plate balanced perfectly in her hands. I'm sorry. He smiled, the kind that invited laughter. Just saying. Carrying plates, memorizing a few lines. Must be nice. A few people chuckled uncertainly. Someone cleared their throat. She set the plate down gently. Is there something wrong with your meal, sir? No, no. He waved a hand. The food's fine. I'm just curious. His eyes traveled down her apron, her sensible shoes. How someone ends up here. The air thickened. Maya felt it, the way rooms change temperature before storms. Here, she asked. Serving, he said, as if clarifying a concept for a child. Lack of options. Or lack of aptitude. Her expression didn't change. I can bring the manager if you have a concern. He laughed, louder now. Don't be so defensive. Let's make it interesting. He straightened, enjoying the attention he'd gathered. I'll ask you a question. You answer it correctly, I'll tip you $10,000. A murmur rippled outward. And if I don't? Maya asked. Then, Victor said lightly, we'll agree that some people are better suited to serving than thinking. The pianist stopped playing. Maya took a breath that felt deeper than usual, grounding. What's the question? Victor blinked. He hadn't expected that. A slow grin spread across his face, sharp and pleased. I invest in logistics, he said. Tell me, without looking anything up, how you'd reduce delivery times across a national network by 20% without increasing cost. A few diners laughed outright now. Someone shook their head. Maya didn't answer immediately. She looked at him, really looked, and for a brief second Victor felt exposed, as if she were measuring him the way he'd measured her. I'll need a pen and a napkin, she said. His grin faltered, just slightly. Go on. She returned moments later, kneeling beside the table so the napkin could rest on its edge. As she drew, her voice stayed calm, steady, unaffected by the audience that had gathered around her words. Most delays, she said, sketching boxes and arrows, don't happen on the road. They happen when nothing's moving. Victor leaned forward despite himself. She continued, lines growing confident, deliberate. The room was utterly silent now, every ear tuned, every assumption shifting inch by inch. Maya finished the last line on the napkin and capped the pen with a soft click. For a moment, she didn't speak. She let the silence do some of the work for her, the way a well-placed rest in music made the next note matter more. Victor stared at the sketch as if it might rearrange itself when he blinked. Third, she said at last, tapping the paper lightly, you align incentives across the chain. Pay drivers for on-time handoffs, not just miles. Reward warehouse teams for reduced idle inventory, not speed alone. People respond to what you measure. The words hung in the air. Victor's mouth opened, then closed. He leaned back slowly, folding his arms, eyes narrowing not with mockery now, but calculation. That sounds rehearsed, he said. Like something you memorized. Maya met his gaze without flinching. It's something I lived. You can tell because it accounts for friction. Textbook models don't. A man at a nearby table let out a low whistle before catching himself. Victor noticed. His jaw tightened. You expect me to believe, he said, lowering his voice, that you came up with this while carrying plates. I expect you to believe your next course will be delayed if I don't return this pen, Maya replied, rising smoothly to her feet. A few people laughed, real laughter this time, quick and surprised. Victor's lips twitched, then pressed into a thin line as she turned and walked back toward the kitchen, leaving the napkin behind like a dare. Behind the swinging doors, the noise of the restaurant rushed back in, clattering pans, murmured orders, the hiss of a grill. Maya leaned against the stainless steel counter for half a second, letting the adrenaline ebb. Her hands were steady. That mattered to her more than anything. You okay? Whispered Luis, another server, eyes wide. That guy's intense. I'm fine, she said. And she was. The old nerves had stayed quiet, tucked away where she kept them for emergencies. When she returned with dessert, the energy in the room had shifted. Victor was still at his table, but his posture had changed. He sat forward now, elbows resting near the edge, gaze fixed not on his phone but on her. He waited until she set the plate down. What's your degree? He asked. She didn't pretend to misunderstand. Applied mathematics. A murmur rippled through the nearby tables, sharper than before. From where? Victor pressed. MIT. The word landed like a dropped glass. Somewhere, the pianist resumed playing, very softly. Victor stared at her, disbelief flickering openly now. Then why are you here? Maya folded her hands in front of her, fingers laced loosely. Because my mother got sick, she said. Because this place offers flexible hours. Because health insurance doesn't care where your diploma came from. And because thinking isn't a job title. His expression shifted again, something in it cracking, reforming. He looked down at the napkin, then back up at her. You could be doing more, he said, almost reflexively. I am, she replied. Right now, I'm doing this. The manager hovered a few steps away, pale, unsure whether to intervene or disappear. Victor noticed him and waved him off without looking. I want to speak with you after your shift, Victor said. About consulting. I could use someone like you. The words were measured, careful, the way offers worth millions were usually made. Maya considered him for a long moment. She thought of the snap of his fingers, the way he'd framed the question like a trap. She shook her head. I'm not interested. His brow furrowed. Everyone's interested. Not in being tested for sport, she said quietly. If you want my ideas, you can ask without trying to humiliate me first. The refusal landed harder than anything she'd said before. Victor opened his mouth, then closed it. He exhaled, long and slow, and for the first time that evening, he looked smaller. Not diminished, exactly. Just human. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a thick stack of bills, placing them neatly on the table. For the question, he said. And the lesson. Maya glanced at the money but didn't touch it. Instead, she picked up the napkin, folded it once along the creases of her drawing, and handed it back to him. Keep this. You'll need it more than the money. She turned away before he could respond. As she moved through the room, people watched her with a new kind of attention, curious, respectful, quietly odd. Someone began to clap, hesitated, then stopped. The moment didn't need applause. Behind her, Victor remained seated, staring at the napkin in his hand. He replayed the evening in reverse, each careless word, each assumption laid bare. The arrogance he'd worn so easily now felt heavy, ill-fitting. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. It wasn't embarrassment. It was respect, earned the hard way, and the uneasy knowledge that brilliance didn't announce itself with titles or tailored suits. Maya disappeared into the kitchen, tied her apron tighter, and went back to work.